Howdy folks, my name is Skyler Buckley and my friends down at Maverick Leather Company have so kindly asked me to do some instructional how-to videos, and today I thought we would start with a belt. The belt we're going to make today is a simple, practical, functional leather belt. We're not going to do anything fancy to it, so this video is just geared towards beginners who want to make something that's useful and serves a purpose. Real quick, I wanted to go over some of the tools I'll be using for this project. Number one, we got a strap cutter. This is a tool you can't go without in the shop. Leather hole punch. One of these would work too. Both styles are good. They do the job, they do the trick. Edge beveler. I use a number 2 edge beveler on my belts. Oblong punch. This is a CS Osborne oblong punch, 1 inch. If you don't have an oblong punch, that's all right. You can use one of these guys and punch 2 holes and then use a razor blade to cut the lines between your holes to create an oblong hole. A half round belt end punch. I like to use this shape. I'll probably use this shape today. If you don't have a belt end punch, that's all right. You can just use your razor blade to cut out any shape you want for the end of your belt. There's lots of cool little belt guides like this that you can use, and you can trace the end of your belt. A razor blade, some needles, and some thread. I use tiger thread. This is 1mm tiger thread, I believe, and we'll be using this to sew up our keeper, our belt loop. A stitching chisel. This is just a 2-prong diamond chisel, and we're going to use that to pop a couple holes in each side of our belt loop or keeper so we can sew that up. Scratch awl. You can use this for tracing out patterns, marking out where your holes are going to go, cleaning out the top of your glue bottle. Pretty much a must-have for any project. You can also use belt loop staples. I've never used them personally, but they look pretty slick, they look pretty simple. So there are other options other than sewing your belt loop or keeper together. But for this video, I'm going to be using those diamond chisels to pop a couple holes in each end of that keeper and sewing it together that way. Always good to have a hammer or a mallet of some kind. The leather I'm using today is a 10 to 11 ounce Herman Oak Latigo leather. You can use anywhere between an 8 to 12 ounce leather, but I do recommend getting something with a medium to firmer temper. If you get too soft a leather, it's just going to stretch out and it's not going to last very long, especially for these single layer belts. So I do recommend getting that medium to firmer temper, and anywhere between that 8 to 12 ounce roughly should work out pretty good for single layer belts. And today we're going to fasten everything down with Chicago screws. I believe these have a 3/8 inch long post. I use anywhere from 3/8 inch to 1/4 inch posts for my Chicago screws when it comes to belts. Alright, I think that about covers the tools. If I forgot anything, I'll be sure to let you know during the video. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, first thing we want to do is get our strap cutter set to 1.5 inches. And there's little hash marks here. Let you know exactly where that is. If we want to cut 1.5 inches strap for this belt, we'll lock it in. We want to make sure it's tight, so you can use pliers. I like to use the inside of these nippers. These are old farrier nippers that I use to cut like rivet and burr style rivets. Works really good. And I also use it for this. Another tool I found that works really good for these is an old chainsaw wrench. Fits on there perfectly. Okay, to start our cut, I want to make sure the leather is butted all the way up against this handle here, and I'll just pull it down in there, and then I'm just gonna start to pull towards me while holding with my left hand, holding that leather with my left hand steady. Then I'll start to kind of pull the piece I'm cutting and make sure it's staying straight. And I'll just cut it all the way down. Just pull it all the way down. we've got our belt blank. On to the next one. All right, time to punch out our first belt in, and I start with the end that I attach the buckle to. I've made myself a little template that helps me keep everything consistent and the same every time. And I do 1.5 inches between my rivets. That's where my keeper will sit. And then I do 3/4 inch to the start of my oblong punch, 3/4 inch to the next rivet, and then 1.5 inches. I believe that's 2.5 inches between those. And then you could just center your oblong punch in there. So yeah, let's punch this sucker out. And it also is a nice straight good belt end, so I'll use that as a guide when I punch this out. I'll just put that on there nice and straight. Hopefully we get a nice end there. Okay, now I'll take my guide, lay it on there, and I'll mark out where I'm going to punch my holes for my rivets, or my Chicago screws in this case. Okay, they're all marked out. Let's punch these holes out. Now, to measure a belt correctly, the best way to do it is just put it around your waist and make a mark. The other best way, and maybe the best way, is to take an old belt, if you have one, and measure from where your buckle connects to the hole that you use. That's the way, if I get someone ordering a belt, I ask if they can do that with an old belt. But if someone only gives you their pant size and that's all you have to go off, then I usually add about 2.5 to 3 inches to that pant size. So let's measure it up. So I'm making this belt for me, and I know that I need my center hole at 33 inches. I'm a skinny guy. So I've marked my center hole, and I'm gonna do 2 holes on each side of that. So 5 holes total. Spaced at 1 inch apart. So I like to have my tail about 4.5 to 5 inches past the last hole. That way I have enough tail to fit and stay in my keeper. If I don't make that long enough, then my tail won't stay in my keeper when I'm using the last hole. So on this belt, I'm gonna do 4.5 inches. I like to use this style punch when I'm punching my belt holes. I just tend to keep them a little bit straighter with this than the other style hole punch. So now I'm going to bevel these edges. I'm going to take our beveler and put it at about a 45-degree angle and apply a little pressure and start to push. And we'll just go all the way. Do that on both sides. So now we're gonna make our keeper. This was the leftover bit from the belt strap. And I make my keepers about 4.5, 4.25, 4.5 inches long. And then we'll cut this down to about 5/8. Just set it 5/8. That'll be our keeper. Okay, right here I'm just threading my needle. Now it's time to sew this puppy up. So when I sew up these keepers, I start threading through the back side on both sides. And when I get to the front, I cross over and go back through the same holes I just went through. And then I'm on the back side again, so I crisscross, make an X, head up to the next set of holes, go through, cross over, come back through to the back side, and then I do a square knot, tie that off, and burn it down a little bit, and that's that. All right, all the pieces to this belt are done, and now we just gotta put it all together. All right, when putting these Chicago screws together, I wanna make sure that flat piece with the post goes into the top. Then I'll flip it over, take the threaded piece, and screw them together. All right, now I just gotta punch my stamp in there. This belt will be done. I'm just gonna eyeball this. All right, guys, we finished our belt. Thanks for watching. be sure to go check out Maverick Leather Company. They've got all the leather you'll need. They've got tools, they've got supplies, they've got friendly, amazing customer service. They'll get you going, get you hooked up. And it's my dinner time, so see you in the next one.